What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And this one I want to talk about something very important that's developing on SPY, what's going on with Tesla stock, what's going on with Nvda, the QQQ, and many different tickers. I'm going to show you guys something very important about the market and give you guys a prediction for the end of the year as we're seeing something very beautiful brewing for Tesla and SPY. I'm going to give you guys some very important information, but before I do anything like this, let me just mention a couple of things. I'm personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. Now, this offer ends in just about 9 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. So I wanted to shift your attention right over here and show you guys this price comparison chart between Tesla and the QQQ and also Tesla and SPY in just a few minutes. But right now, when you look at Tesla, it has a tendency moving very similarly to that of the QQQ as it dictates it to some extent. And simultaneously, they move on very similar algorithms. Never forget the algos, they are the things that dictate these markets. So Tesla and the QQQ dropped together, they pumped together, came down together, pumped together, came down together, pumped and dropped together pretty much for the last, what is this, like a little bit over a year. Pretty crazy stuff right here on this chart. What about SPY and Tesla? Look at this similarity between them. Okay, Tesla was a little bit weak during the start of the year because Elon Musk was selling, but they were technically dropping similarly right here. Then they pumped together, they came down together. Tesla was a little bit weak for a couple of weeks because of their deliveries and things that were going on during that April period. But besides that, look at what happened recently. They pumped together, came down together, they pumped together, came down together, pumped together very similarly. Then they came down together, and now they just pumped together on Friday. So Tesla has a tendency of moving very similar to that of the broader markets. The QQQ and SPY tend to move very similar to one another. And all of these technical developments tell us that if there's a big pump coming to the market as a whole, it is likely going to help Tesla pump even more. That's what tends to happen. Earnings is another factor, but for Tesla, we have some good news coming out. The Cybertruck launch event is coming soon. The Cybertruck coming out soon is a bullish catalyst. Not to mention the fact that Tesla is going to likely give us a strong deliveries report for the fourth quarter. They're telling us that 1.8 million vehicles are expected. So there's a good chance Tesla will do well. But anyways, I want to talk about something else. So now that we have this in mind, that Tesla moves very similar to SPY, look at this right here. We have this midterm election/election year seasonality pattern, and you will notice that something very similar happened for the second half of the year. Now, what tends to happen to the markets during this time frame is the market was outperforming during this period because the market was already bearish like in March. But then when we hit August, as soon as August came, if you guys look back at SPY, for example, as soon as we hit August, we started to turn bearish. We were basically bullish approaching July. August and September have been bearish months, and October has been quite bearish so far, except for the last bounce we got on Friday. So, how does this relate to this? Notice how from this point on, it's moving very similar to what the market may end up doing, in my opinion. August came, the market turned bearish. That's what historically happens. September came, market turned bearish. That's what historically happens. The market makes a new low in October. You guys can see it either early on or maybe like later. That's what historically happens again. And this is suggesting that November and December are going to be very, very bullish. Can I guarantee that? The answer is no. It depends on earnings and all these different factors, right? I can't promise anything about the future, but what I can tell you is that the chart right now is telling us that that is likely what's going to happen. I want to remind everyone, to all the people who are perma bears saying the market's going to crash forever, we're going to go to new lows. It's a possibility. Hey, I'm not going to rule it out. You know, a recession is coming. There's downside hardships coming for everyday Americans. You know, it's very tough. It's very horrible. But remember, first off, the stock market does not move the same as the economy. The stock market could pump when the economy is in a bad shape. That's because there's manipulation that dictates the markets and other external factors, such as squeezes, those market makers, and the list goes on. On top of that, it's an election year. They're not going to let the market crash, in my opinion, during an election year. Is the market down? Yes. Were we calling downside for the markets? Yes, we were. But soon, and I am predicting that so long as we don't have like too many horrendous earnings and there isn't some kind of like black swan event like a new pandemic or something like that, the odds greatly favor a nice squeeze for November/December, also for Tesla and the whole market. So could we drop more for October? Yes, we can, depending on earnings and etc. but typically the market bottoms in October, and I believe that's what's going to happen. And this cup and handle is screaming in our faces that there's going to be a big run for November/December. That is what this chart is suggesting on SPY at the time I'm recording this. And I find that very probable to be what's about to happen. All right. So I just wanted to inform you all about this on SPY and what this means for Tesla. For Tesla, this tells us that when you look at the monthly on Tesla, there's a possible inverse head and shoulders technically. There's also a possible, you could interpret this as like a cup and handle as well. Tesla could see some downside thanks to its like head and shoulders that could be developing, but overall, I see Tesla holding up. Even if it does drop a little bit, that's going to be fine. It could drop down to lower levels, which I will discuss later on. But don't forget that Tesla has potential for a monstrous pump as we approach the date of the Cybertruck launch event, as we have the Cybertruck coming out, and as we approach the end of the year, in my opinion. I think Tesla's going to end it strong, well above $300 by, I would say by January, it should be coming up there. Could we drop for now for the short term? Yes, we can. There could be downside, guys, but I'm talking about the medium term as we hit January, December. Tesla's going to be back in the 300s, in my honest opinion. I think there's a good chance of upside. Now, with that said, I've been going over like the more like longer term for how I see the market moving, even for the QQQ. If you look at the monthly of the QQQ, it also has a cup and handle forming. Could this thing drop more because of tech? Yes, it can. There could be more downside for October, but don't forget, November and December, they tend to be strong. And there's a good chance of that happening again. There's also this cup and handle information. This could play out quite nicely. Make sure you're prepared for this. Make sure you're ready for what's about to come. Anyways, that's it for like the longer term. Now I just want to talk about the shorter term for the stocks because we have some very important developments to be discussing. So I went over Tesla, guys. I'm not super bullish or bearish on Tesla right now. We are looking a bit more bullish, but we need some confirmation to turn much more bullish. Tesla has a head and shoulders on the 4-hour chart. I talked about this yesterday. If Tesla rebounds, you're going to be watching this 262 area as resistance. If we break above this, 265 plus could come. We can start pushing towards 268. If we reject off 262.5 to 263, this rectangle right here, this is like the zone. If you reject off this resistance, we could see Tesla continue to form that right shoulder, and that right shoulder could still be forming like this for the head and shoulders. It's a real possibility. But for SPY, we have something different developing that's going to be very interesting. So what's going on with SPY? Here's my answer. The truth is, this is a little tricky to predict. There are three possibilities. I'm going to be watching this test right here. We have some critical resistance coming at this 432 to 433 area, 432.5 to 433 to be exact. And we could see a rejection or we could break above this depending on different factors. If we break above this, we could temporarily turn bullish, right? We could come like this. I mean, we could just temporarily try to push up, but there's no guarantee that we're just going to keep pushing forever because there's always the risk of us coming back down later and then trying to like bounce like that or doing something else. So be very careful when looking at the charts like this. But I also want to call out another perspective of this market. It depends on like that. That would be like the more bullish perspective, us just like establishing a higher high and higher low and starting to uptrend. You could also argue that there's more downside because of an Elliott wave perspective, where we had this like major drop right here being wave one. This was wave two up here. Wave three has been this whole move down here, and we're just about to see like a wave four. Maybe it stops up here, 432 to 433. Maybe it goes up to almost 440. It really depends on if we could break this or not. If we break this, it could go a little higher, and then we could see one last, drop for the market. That's what like seasonality suggests before we start the monstrous run for the November/December period, and the market starts to just push and push, all the way up to these higher levels and just start squeezing like this, right? That's what could be on the table, at least based off Elliott wave. So it's something worth noting, and it's another possibility that you should just keep in your mind. And then the last possibility I'm thinking of would be, what if we do get the rejection? So this rejection is going to be very big if we get it or not. If the market ends up rejecting like right here off 433-ish, we get a huge rejection, then we could be establishing a bottom for the markets if the bottom is already in. And this could just be an inverse head and shoulders that's forming, and then the market just starts rebounding, and then we start pushing and pushing for that, big rally for the end of the year. I'm not sure which one is going to be, but what I will tell you is that we're going to be watching this test right here. The most important thing to determine what's about to happen is going to be this test at this 432.5 to 433 level. This is going to be huge, this test. Do we reject off here to form a right shoulder? Are we going to reject off here and form a new low from an Elliott wave perspective before a bounce? Or are we going to break out and push higher towards like 440 before we get the move to the downside, or like a small drop for something else, right? I don't know, guys. It all depends on this test. It depends on so many different factors. So we're going to be watching 432.5 to 433 on SPY to determine if we're about to get a breakout or not, a much bigger breakout. We look bullish from a technical standpoint, but we want to be watching this just to be safe. Now I'm just going to quickly go over like three more tickers. Nvda. Nvda is in a very critical zone right now. Nvda has a bullish and a bearish case. I actually drew them out right here. So Nvidia is going to likely pump towards this 460 area. This is where we have this top. 460 is a key level because this is where Nvidia got this rejection in the past right here, this 460 area. If we are bearish, Nvidia could reject off 460 and then start sinking back down towards this trend line right here, which is going to be our support. If that is hit, there could be like a nice bounce off of this, and we could just try bouncing higher. But we're going to be watching this potential top at 460. If we break above it, Nvidia is going to attempt to fill this gap, in my opinion, and try to get close to 470. If we break this resistance right here at this 460 to 461.5 area, that is going to be very key for Nvidia stock. So watch this very carefully going into next week. This zone right here, we're going to be watching to see if Nvidia rejects or not. If we get the rejection, we'll come down to retest the trend line. If we break, Nvidia could be pushing for 470 very soon. For the QQQ, we're going to be watching for a potential double bottom like formation. You can also interpret this as a cup and handle since this like bottom was a little bit lower. And the full measured move looks bullish. It looks like this thing could be pushing higher, but it depends on 366. If this thing rejects off 366, so let's actually draw this out right here. My path is here. If you reject off here, 366, it could come back down to 362 and then kind of like consolidate around here. That's like the more bearish case. If we're bullish, you want to see it break 366 like this, back test it and start pushing for 370. That's going to be because of, like Tesla, Nvidia, these stocks pushing up higher. That looks a little bit more likely, this bullish case, just looking at the current trend on it, looking at the volume. It looks like it wants to break out towards 366 plus and 370, but just to be safe, watch and see if we break that. Finally, the last ticker I'm going to talk about in this video is going to be Aapl stock. Aapl has a very, very key level. Now we have a possible rising wedge on it, but nothing is guaranteed until we see, whether we break or not. And we're going to be testing this 178 zone, 177.5 to 178 as a key resistance. If we break above 178, then 180 is going to be the next level to be watching for. Now, could Aapl get up there? It sure can, but we need to break and hold 178 first. If it breaks, I could see 180 on Aapl, and then we will see if it rejects or not because we have some tight resistance there. If we break above 180, there's a gap towards 182.5. We could fill that gap up there if we break above 180. So just watch those levels carefully, guys. That's some just like quick technical analysis. If we reject off here, this rising wedge could play out and we could see like a big rejection. So it all depends on whether or not we break 178 or not. That's going to be very key for Aapl. All right, so hopefully this video was very insightful for people out there. Could the market see downside? Could all these tickers drop more? Yes, they can. It depends on earnings. But don't forget, the cup and handle is still present on SPY. It has not been invalidated. And don't forget about the potential that this has on affecting the whole market. The QQQ has the same thing. These things look primed for a massive rally for November/December and maybe even a part of January. So just be open-minded. Okay, this is a big opportunity. And the same thing is for Tesla. This could help Tesla pump towards 300 plus towards the end of the year. For the short term, I don't know if Tesla's going to be pumping extremely hard or not. It depends on so many different factors. That's why I'm just going to be watching these levels. I'm going to be paying very close attention to this head and shoulders and watch how Tesla tests this resistance. All right, so I'm going to make a more in-depth video about like the much shorter term technicals for many different tickers tomorrow, but that's what I have for this one for my technical analysis. I thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, and peace out.